Yeah, so if you want to,
Right.
yeah. This meeting is being recorded. Yeah, I'll give you a quick. I can't give you too much of a tour around because I've got my battery charging, but I'll give you a rough idea. This is like some nice instruments up there. If you can see, there's a bouzouki from Greece, the 6-string banjo, a couple of acoustics. There's an Irish bouzouki, it's a flat one, and then we got going around the room. We got these various drums.
Nice.
Also a Tibetan gong. Got a oud from Egypt there. A laoud from Spain. A few gold records. Dulcimer. Mandolin.
Wow.
My favorite gigging guitar, the Yamaha SG200. It's super light with a really nice acoustic sound. It doesn't feed back. And then on this side, we're going around. Got a couple of things probably worth looking at. Lots of percussion stuff, drums, darbukas, an old Epiphone fretless, which is interesting. Acoustic guitar, there's a Zaz from Persia, massive long neck, you see it?
Wow. Man.
So all this stuff gets, I play all this stuff, it's not decoration, they all get used on records. And the rest of my gear is all in storage still. I used to have a studio in Paris, France, and when I moved to Canada, I put everything in storage over in Paris, and it was there for about 8 years before I actually managed to get it all over here. But I just don't have room in my apartment for all my instruments, so the other half, my big stuff like drum kits and guitar amps and stuff like that, they're all still up there in up in Newmarket. And I just acquired this little baby here to add to my electric guitar. This is a 1980 Fender Stratocaster, Eric Clapton model, made in America.
Wow.
This is I just bought this off a friend who has arthritis. He can't play anymore, so he wanted me to have it. So it's going to be on a lot of records.
Are those awards that you said gold records, or are those awards from something?
Yeah, there's some of my awards. A lot of it's still packed away, but this is a couple of AMPEX Golden Reel Awards, which are kind of rare. You only get them if you record a record. It's the old analog days, when you used to record on tape. And if it sells, if it becomes a hit record, then they will send you, whoever is responsible for that record, they'll send you an award. I got my classic Sinead O'Connor award. That's for Nothing Compares to You.
Wow.
Oops, I just lost my pen. Yeah, that was sold many millions of copies, of #1 in every country. So they sent me a platinum disc for that one, which is quite nice.
Wow. And you what was your role in that song?
I was co-producer. I produced the album with Sinead and produced it, and that single came from the album.
Wow.
But Sinead didn't write that song. It was written by Prince. And she got permission to do the song from him. She knew him.
Yeah.
And she did her own version of it, and it's very different from Prince's version.
Yeah, it was really iconic. I remember I was a teenager at the time, and it was on MTV every constantly. She had shaved her head, right? So
well, the thing about that record is not many people realize that, but I've obviously, because I was involved in it, I have a lot of inside stories. But that record came out in the early 90s, and it went up to number 42 in the UK charts. And then it started going down, so the BBC dropped it. The BBC at that time had a monopoly on what was going to be successful and what wasn't, and so they've decided that it wasn't a hit record, so they stopped playing it, and then so Sinead went in with a team and did a video shot in Montparnasse Cemetery in Paris, and she did a great performance on the video. She's crying, and I asked her why she was so emotional about the song. She said because it reminded her of her grandmother, who was the only person from her childhood that was nice to her. She grew up in a really cruel, spiteful family,
Man.
And lot of persecution, strict Catholic family, and they just made her life,
Wow.
hell basically. So, but the only person that was really nice to her was her grandmother, and her grandmother had died, and so she was thinking of her when she sang that song on the video, and so it made her cry, and that crying video, the performance, completely renovated the song. It just took everybody just started playing the video, and then the song became a massive number one in every country. Because of the video. If it hadn't been for the video, this song was just on. It was on its way out. It's finished, And
I think people were fascinated by the fact that she was beautiful without her hair. That was like a novelty at the time.
Yeah, she's very rebellious. Yeah, she didn't like. Sinead hated the exploitation of the feminine form, in media. As we see it all the time, and so she was making a statement about that by shaving her hair off.
Wow,
that's what she wanted. And that was she's only 18 when I started working with her.
Holy cow!
She's a young kid, She's pregnant, and she had a little boy from a guy called John Reynolds. Oh, look, it's 11:11. How about that? A significant number to be talking to each other at 11:11. It's pretty good, pretty cool, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah. So she had a little boy called Jake, and from John Reynolds, who's a drummer in her band, and I think it's the only kid she ever had. So, and I kind of lost contact with her after a few years, and she got into finding herself through religion and all this sort of stuff, stuff that twisted up souls do, and I don't know. I didn't really hear from her. I think she's had a few problems, had to do all kinds of therapy and stuff. And I don't know whether she's sorted herself out now, but she's back in the media doing some stuff. So it's just, as you know, I work with Buffy Sainte-Marie, and Buffy had a rough childhood too. But for some reason, she came out of that with a fighting spirit and did everything she could to help the cause of the First Nation Indigenous people, And she used music, the power of the universal language of music, to do that. So, which is Sinead tried to do too, but Buffy, in my opinion, was a lot more successful because Buffy was a lot more grounded in a way. She instead of lashing out and tearing up a picture of the Pope, like Sinead did, she would do it in more subtle ways, to write a song about it, which had the issues she wanted to express. Whereas Sinead was just full of emotion, would just lash out, and and of course she tore the picture of the Pope in half, and said, "Fight the real enemy," because of what she had experienced as a kid in the Catholic schools. All the child molestation and all that stuff that was going on. There was a lot of cruelty going on, and she felt that very strongly that she wanted to say something about that. And of course, the funny thing is I was on royalties as a producer, right? So I was making a pretty penny out of the sales. I mean, I was getting checks for like $1 million coming in every 6 months.
Holy cow!
So I couldn't believe it, because I'd only took 6 weeks to make the record. It was an easy record to make.
Wow!
And anyway, the literally the day after she was on Saturday Night Live, she tore up picture of the Pope. The day after, sales in America went to like 0, and the people were actually burning the CDs, the fires and stuff. It's like, it was a real evangelistic Christian right-wing backlash going on, and it's just kind of just showed you that the importance of saying things in the right way. I mean, we all have feelings about truth, what truth is and what really matters, but you have to combine it with diplomacy, because if you point the finger at certain people, there'll be a really big backlash, and that's what happened to Sinead. She got literally banned from America.
Wow.
Kind of like what happened to John Lennon when he said that the Beatles were more popular than Jesus at the time. And that really upset a lot of people. I mean, in my opinion, true religion is between you and the Creator. the creative spirit of the
And
universe.
he was being just tongue in cheek. He wasn't trying to be literal.
It's just, in fact, they were, statistically at that time, the more people were buying Beatles records and, worshipping the Beatles, because at that time Christianity had kind of leveled out, so it's not, it wasn't really necessarily a wrong thing to say, but as I said, if you don't use diplomacy, you can upset a lot of people,
Yeah. Well, I think that I read somewhere that Nixon or the FBI put Buffy on some kind of a no playlist, that they kind of shut down her radio play because of her work for Native Americans and maybe her anti-war message.
She wasn't really aware of it at the time. What happened is that she did a radio interview I think it's in New York. And the DJ said, "Have you seen this letter, Buffy? It's gone out to all the radio stations." And it was a letter from the White House saying you're not allowed to play this artist. Wow. So that's the first time she heard about it. It's funny enough. Wow. And the Nixon administration tried to just get rid of her, basically. And I firmly believe those political powers, those people who wield all the muscle in our society, I think they do a lot more than we know. I'm suspicious about the disappearance of John Lennon.
Yeah.
Because he was such a peacemaker. Everything for him was about peace and stopping war and everything. And certain entities on this planet do not want to stop war. It's very profitable.
Yeah. It's happened to a lot of people, it seems like.
I mean, it's kind of in the realms of conspiracy theory, but I have my own logic, my own common sense logic tells me certain things when I see them on the news. So I won't get into too much detail because I don't want to be controversial, but it's I think inwardly when you see something or you hear about something, it's probably the thought adjuster can talk to you sometimes and indicate what the real truth of the situation is, so it intuitively. But it doesn't always correspond with what you're told by the media.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's an interesting world we're living in. As you know, I'm an eternal optimist.
Yeah.
And I believe that the human species is ripening. Despite what we see in the ripples, the ups and downs of evolution, I still feel that we're on an ascension path. Essentially, we're ascending, and very slowly, but surely. And we see the conflict, and some of the conflict is caused by the friction between soul and material. It causes conflict because it's like rebirth, and birth in itself is a painful experience for the mother and the baby, but something beautiful comes out of it. And I think we're kind of being reborn at the moment. I think we're seeing we're getting the pangs of birth in society. That's the way I feel anyway. A lot of people would disagree with me, but it's as I said, I'm an optimist.
Well, everybody, it's certainly a unique time. I don't know what to say about it, but certainly very very polarized political climate with everything, but I think everybody knows that there's some degree of corruption in when you get high levels of power, that everybody's not always honest and ethical in all their dealings. It's pretty clear.
There's a massive conspiracy theory that there are certain powers that be are trying to reduce the population of the planet, and which seems to be working. I don't know whether it's true or not, but I always tell people that on soul levels, it doesn't really matter. As they said in the movie Braveheart, everybody dies, but not everybody lives. And I think it's it doesn't matter what's going on in this crazy world that we're surrounded with. It can be looked at experientially as a positive input of information. It's the expression, we could complain that the rose bushes have thorns, or we can rejoice that the thorn bushes have roses.
Yeah.
It's really down to perception.
Yeah.
And I believe that, as I put in one of my songs called Peace and Joy, which is put on the web recently, first line of that song is that I've heard that suffering is in perception, but we choose the path of pain. Yeah. So in other words, we choose to suffer, actually. Gurdjieff said, one of the profound things that the teacher Gurdjieff said was that mankind finds it extremely difficult to give up their suffering. It's almost like we think we should be. And that's, of course, is perpetuated by some of the, the religions of the world, who say, some of the religions say essentially that we're sinners and we're all going to go to hell unless we do this and that. So it's a whole, we've been saddled with doctrine of fear for many centuries.
Yeah.
And so we're all kind of in that. And, so I learned when I was in India, I had some major spiritual breakthroughs. And one of them was I realized the truth in the words that suffering is not in the event itself, it's in our perception of the event. I learned that in a most profound way through various experiences in an ashram, or it's in a university in Chennai called Oneness University. And I'm eternally grateful for that, because for me it was a breakthrough. I heard the expression many times, but I didn't actually feel it in my being. You can read thousands of books and, you can be like full of spiritual information, but there's something needs to change in you to actually absorb the truth of what you're learning.
Yeah.
It's not in the mind, it's not an academic thing. It's not information as such. It's something else. It's higher information, I call it, Yeah. So it's, and I think that comes from also I think we're being communicated by our TA, thought adjusters in the sense of the Urantia Book terminology. And I've heard so many times people say, I wish I'd listened to my inner voice before I did that. Now my wife says it all the time. And it's, we don't seem to learn from our mistakes, really. We do, but it's really slow, And
does your wife also read the Urantia Book?
She's got a copy. I brought her, but she doesn't really read it. No, she's kind of she's much more down to earth than I am, grounded. She's a really good documentary filmmaker, but she's also a political activist. She tries to make the world better through the social network. Working with politicians and stuff.
Is she also from England?
No, she's from Canada.
Okay, Canadian. That's why you moved to Canada then.
Yeah, well, the story is briefly, she was making the official Buffy Sainte-Marie life story documentary.
Okay.
She started it in about 2008. Buffy recommended that she speak to me because I'd been working with Buffy since 1992. We'd done various albums together. And Buffy said, you've got to talk to Chris because he knows a lot about the way we did things in the early days and all that stuff. So she started phoning me and we got on really well. But at the time I was living in Paris and my marriage had gone pear-shaped. I was living in Bordeaux with my ex-wife and she went back to England with her mother. She didn't like France. So I sold the chateau and then I moved to Paris. And so Joan was phoning me now and again to get information about working with Buffy. Like, for example, me and Buffy were the first registered people to use the web to transfer music. In 1992, we used CompuServe to send MIDI files to each other to start the album, comeback album, Coincidence and Likely Stories. So Joan was asking me about all that on the phone and a lot of technical information. And then eventually, some years later, I was playing guitar for Buffy and we played at Massey Hall, which is a very prestigious venue here in Toronto. And it was coincidentally, they were releasing Joan's documentary on DVD with the new album I just finished with Buffy called Running for the Drum. So it's a dual event. So of course she was there.
Yeah.
And so we met physically for the first time in the green room at Massey Hall upstairs. She introduced herself to me and I'd just come off stage. And we stayed in touch and her husband had just ran off with another woman. So she was kind of destitute and very sad. And I said, well, I'm here for you. If you ever need my help, just ask me. So I'll text her every day, little encouraging little notes, to make her feel better. And then so eventually she says, sorry, I'm going to get on the plane and go to see Chris. So she flew over to Paris, and then we started our relationship for real.
Wow.
That's how I ended up in Canada.
So yeah, Buffy's introduced you to a lot of great things in your life.
Yeah, exactly. Yes,
Wow.
Buffy felt responsible for that. So I think she's hoping it's going to keep going.
And when you played with Buffy, do you play guitar?
Yeah, I don't play with her anymore. I play on her records, of course.
Yeah.
Like the Medicine songs, I played a lot of stuff on that. Like the War Racket was me on bass, drums, and guitar and keyboards and stuff. So
okay, so you play a lot of instruments on her.
Yeah, I do. I'm a multi-instrumentalist, so that's one reason why I've been able to survive through COVID, because people just send me literally voice memos of them singing, and I put a whole universe around it.
Wow.
That's what I do. So I've been able to do a lot of projects, virtual recording projects, without even being in the same room as the artist.
Yeah, wow.
So it's pretty, I've done
You're
a lot
keeping
of
quite busy still.
Yeah. I mean, I'm in the middle of producing an album for Angela Amarilik. She's from Nunavut, up in the Northern Territories, and she's signed to Hitmakers Records. So I was in Ottawa a few months ago doing a songwriting workshop with Indigenous Native artists, but also at the same time laying down the vocal tracks for her new album. And so I just take a vocal, and then I create the universe around the vocal. That's what I've been doing the last couple of years since the COVID thing.
And it's sound, or you want to say a little bit about how you got into producing? You talked before about that you had worked with Peter Gabriel and Sting and Sinead O'Connor.
I was kind of Pete Gabriel was a kind of interesting thing. He used to come into the studio every day with Sinead when I was working on that album. And but I didn't know who it was. This guy used to come in and sit at the back of the room with a pair of sunglasses on. So and I sort of looked with him with disdain. I thought, why is this bloke wearing sunglasses in the studio? It's dark in here already. So anyway, I had a sense of humor about that. So after a couple of days, I thought I better go and see who it is. Introduce myself, because he would sit there and say nothing all day. So I went up and shook his hand. I'm Chris, nice to meet you. Who are you? And he said, oh, Peter Gabriel. I've been sitting and watching me work for 2 or 3 days, and I didn't know who it was. And I think he was probably going out with Sinead at the time, because she sang with him on tour and everything.
Okay.
And then I met him, and then Sinead asked me to oversee the live sound for her on a European tour, which is Pete Gabriel, Sting, and Sinead.
Okay.
And they were raising money for the Kurds at the time.
Wow.
So I got to sit in this tour bus with Sting and Peter Gabriel, and got more or less on a down to earth relationship.
Yeah.
With them, but I never actually worked with Peter in the studio, other than the fact that he would sit there watching me work. But I always admired him, and I opened a studio in the south of France in the 90s. I bought a 32-room chateau and built a studio in it.
Wow.
And it was built on the same principles as Real World in Bristol. It was a big place with lots of rooms, really nice. I made a lot of good records down there. I made a Etran Finna Tower album, the Tuareg band from Niger. They came down, stayed at the house. We made a really interesting record in 2005, and it got the best world music album award in the UK. So, and that was just done in my studio. They'd never been in the studio before. They didn't want to wear headphones or anything. I just got everybody to stretch out on the floor with their strange instruments and just took a live recording of everything. It's very real.
Wow.
And I did.
So you had a lot of room for guests then.
Yeah. I mean, the house was. Well, I bought the house in 1991, and it was. I had to do a lot of renovation. There'd been nobody living in it for 40 years.
Wow.
And some of the house, there's a cottage in the garden, with a stone wall. That was 400 years old.
Wow.
It's really low doorways and oak beams, and it's a really interesting place. And at that time I wanted to get away from London because I was so busy. I wasn't seeing my kids grow up, so that's kind of why I moved to the south of France. And it enabled me to get a private teacher for my kids, and then I could take them all out around the world with me. They spent 6 weeks in Toronto when I was doing one of Buffy's albums. They've been to South Africa a few times, Denmark, all over the world, and had a really interesting life education.
Yeah,
which is what I wanted for them. And
wow. And do they live in? Where do they live these days?
Oh, my son lives in London. No, in Cambridge, and my daughter lives in Norwich. It's the same area.
Okay.
They're just north of London.
They
seem to be getting on all right. My daughter just had a break up with her last partner, so she's a bit sad at the moment.
How did you originally get connected with Buffy Sainte-Marie?
Oh, through Nigel Grange. Nigel Grange, he passed away a few years ago, sadly. He was what I call one of the original A&R men in the true sense. A&R means artist and repertoire. That's where the term comes from. And it was originally like take Elvis Presley, for example. The A&R man would select the repertoire. In other words, he'd find the best songs for him and have the artist record them. That's what A&R means, artist and repertoire. So Nigel Grange was a true music fan. You go in his house in Notting Hill Gate in London, and he was one of his rooms was just racked with vinyls. You couldn't see any wall. It's just like he just loved music. He lived for music. So he would go to Ireland quite often and talent scout, and he discovered Sinead in Dublin. And he discovered the Waterboys. He signed them.
I'm not familiar with them, but
he signed Bob Geldof. That's how I got to work with Bob Geldof through Nigel. He's from the Boomtown Rats,
Okay.
Bob went on and formed Live Aid.
Okay.
Massive fundraising enterprise to raise money for Africa.
Yeah, that was U2 was also involved in that, right?
Yeah. Well, Bob's friends with Bono, U2, but so Nigel was very instrumental in putting great people together. And so he phoned me one day, and I was the in-house producer for Ensign Records, his company. And he said, "Hey, Chris, just guess what?" He's like a Cockney lad sort of thing. He said, "I just signed a legend, and I want you to produce it." I said, "Wow, who's that?" I was wondering who it was. And he said, "Buffy Sainte-Marie." And I said, "Who? Who's that?" Because I was European. I never heard of Buffy, of course, at the time. And a lot of people didn't know who she was. She was big in Canada, in the States, but not in Europe. So I went to meet Buffy in Nigel's office. That's where I first met her. And we got on really well. And then Buffy said, "Oh, I live in Hawaii. I don't really feel like flying over here all the time because it's a 12-hour time zone jet lag problem." And she said, "Let's work out how we can get sounds to each other through the internet." And at that time it was called CompuServe, before the World Wide Web.
Wow.
So she had a techie boyfriend called Roger Jacobs, who's really smart. He ended up running a computer company in Hawaii. So Roger worked out how to get her MIDI keyboard parts called MIDI files, musical instrument digital interface, how to get those files onto the web. Now, there wasn't enough bandwidth to do audio, because even now audio, even an MP3 of a song is about four megabytes, right?
Yeah.
You could only do up to 1 megabyte of data. But the keyboard files are very, very small files. They're only so many kilobytes, right? So what Roger sent with Buffy's help, they sent all the keyboard parts for her new songs over to me in London. And then I had an engineer called Ian Plested, who's also a techie guy. He set me up with my first computer and everything. So he helped. With his help, we managed to download them all. And then I put all I had to do is mirror the same keyboard setup that Buffy had, which is like at that time it was like a Roland D50, Proteus, DX7, all that stuff that people were using back in those days,
Yeah.
And so I had the same gear, and then I just literally put the files in there, and the stuff appeared.
Yeah.
And I just printed it on a 24-track tape and took the tapes over to Buffy didn't have a 24 track machine, so we hired Steely Dan's studio in Maui to do the vocals and guitars and stuff.
By the way, I don't know if you have something bumping into the microphone, but there's a bit of a kind of sounds like Velcro or something sometimes.
Oh, it's me playing with this. It's all right. It's a cable tie.
Okay, yeah. Careful,
I'll
because it's quite loud.
Is it quite loud? Sorry, I'll put it down.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's some seems like maybe some of the guys from Steely Dan read the Urantia book, because partly some indications in their lyrics, and then partly I don't remember the details, but I've heard some things that seem to be that was the case, but I don't really know anybody who knew them. But did you ever get to know them?
Walter Becker, yeah, because he was running the studio.
Yeah,
and he's the bass player for Steely Dan.
Yeah, and
so
maybe
him and Donald Fagen.
Yeah,
him and Donald Fagen owned the place, but Donald wasn't there when we were doing the recording. But I remember quite distinctly, Walter took me showed me his guitar collection, and it was literally like, we walked into this shed, you know that scene in Matrix where he goes, "We need guns," and suddenly gets, it's like racks of guns. It was like that. There was as far as the eye could see, there was triple racks of guitars, like going, right into the distance. I've never seen anybody with so many guitars. So I said, "Can you play all of them at once, Walter?" Because he was a guitar player as well as a bass player, right? The Steely Dan they're all like multi-talented, really good.
Yeah. And they were really pioneering, from what I understand, and had a real level of quality that a lot of sort of audiophiles appreciate.
Yeah, that's a little bit too anal for my liking, but totally, I get it. The funny thing is that they're probably into other things, like especially Urantia Truth and stuff, because I remember going into their washroom, which is out in a field in the hut. And I went in there for pee, and the whole washroom was surrounded by platinum and gold discs. That's where they kept all their gold discs. So obviously they weren't really interested in success. They were just doing music for the sake of the creative process. How beautiful it is.
Wow,
that's what I do. I don't think of music as, I'm not interested in fame and fortune. It's nothing. If money comes, then fine. Be stupid not to accept it, but my motive has never been money. It's always been when a new song comes through me, I'm just full of gratitude. I say a prayer of gratitude to the Creator for passing this, because it literally comes through you. And both Peter Gabriel and Sting admitted to me that they don't write their stuff. It's channeled. It comes through them.
That's amazing.
And I believe the same with the Beatles too. That stuff cannot be made by human minds. This comes from another place, and we're just vehicles. We just transmit it.
I haven't really played music much in my life, so I've never had the opportunity to experience that. But it must be a gift. It must be something that a privilege. Not something that maybe everybody's had the privilege of experiencing, but it's pretty amazing.
It's the thing to understand about music is it's divine energy searching for manifestation in the material worlds, okay, in some form, whichever planet you may be on. But it's coming through you. It's like a river. It's like a golden river of light coming through you, and you just need to be able to accept it. And if you have a certain amount of technique, you can actually help to materialize that information. It's all information. We are information. Our bodies are all information. We're coming from a matrix of super intelligence, I believe. So what I do as a producer is I learn not to get in the way of that flow, and that's why people like working with me so much, because a lot of producers put their ego into it. Like, this is going to be my record, and this is how I want it to be, and all this stuff, right? Where I would just let the artists manifest and just help them steer it if it's necessary, but not get in the way of the flow of creativity. Like I'll never, like with Sinead, for example, one of the reasons that Nothing Compares to You was such a great record is because it's a one take vocal. She
Yeah.
came in and sang it, and that was it. She didn't
Wow.
redo it, didn't pop in, didn't fix anything. It's just,
It's just
and that's
authentic. Yeah.
it's real. It's real,
Yeah.
right? So, and if I'd been like one of these producers that, are like, oh, let's put this mic up and try this mic and try, I've seen people destroy singers by getting them to sing in 10 different mics, and after 2 hours, these singers are absolutely exhausted, and they say, right, let's record now. That's not the way to make records,
Yeah.
And so
It doesn't come out authentic or like from the heart.
yeah, people think music comes from the head. It's like it's an intelligence thing, but it is not. It's not. It's something much higher than formatory mind.
Yeah.
Formatory mind's a great thing. We can calculate and divide and plan and all that stuff. But in the creative sense, I don't believe the formatory mind can really. I believe it can edit. It can't create. And that's the process. I learned that from Buffy, the difference between editing and creating.
Yeah.
And she taught me that, and it helped me a lot, because I would be writing some lyrics for a song idea, and then I'd get to the second verse, and I get the temptation to look back on what I've written in the first verse. And then as soon as I do that, I'm not creating anymore, I'm editing, and I'm judging, or I'm approving or disapproving what I did in the first verse. Approving and disapproving is part of the formatory mind. It's nothing to do with the creative mind at all. And so because the creative mind doesn't approve or disapprove, it just is. The angels don't judge anything. They just manifest. And so I'd go back and say, oh God, I like that first line. That's really cool. And the second line, I think my friends would laugh at me if they saw that. So, but once you start doing that, you are not creating anymore. So Buffy taught me to keep the thread, not ever look back until you got everything you said you want to say.
Yeah.
Whatever you're doing, even if it's nonsense. She said, if you come up with a great line, but it's totally irrelevant, don't labor over it. Just stick it on another page and just keep going. And so I learned a hell of a lot from her about which, in my opinion, really helped my songwriting a lot.
Wow. And you talked about that, or you both do a lot of producing and playing for other people's, like you've been talking about, and then you also do a lot of your own songwriting. I think you told me when we talked before that you've written so many songs, you never get the time to record them all or something.
yeah, I have. Thank heavens for a voice memo, right? I have thousands of songs in here, ready for development.
Yeah.
Because they come to me at like 4 a.m. I can't get up and start plugging my studio up. I just grab my voice memo and a guitar and go in my room and quietly as I can just sing what's in me.
Wow.
And then I put it away because I don't want to wake the wife up, start doing. So and anyway, this stuff has to be captured really quickly because I believe they're gifts.
Yeah.
When you wake up with a beautiful melody in your subconscious mind, you have to grab it really quick. If you go in and start plugging up gear and going into technology, it's very distracting, and it will break the flow. So I just get up all sleepyhead and just hit one button on voice memo and sing it, get it out, and then turn it off and go back to sleep. But if you don't do that, you never remember it in the morning.
Yeah.
So I captured. Thanks for the voice memo on dictaphone. Before that, I used to use. Thanks to that technology, I've managed to capture a lot of things which would have been back off out in the ether, and somebody else would have picked them up. I believe. I believe in the Hindu concept of the Akashic records. You know what that is, do you?
Not really in detail. I guess I think I have a picture of it. It's like a library in the consciousness, kind of.
Yeah, it's like everything that's ever has been or ever will be is recorded in the universe, and they talk of it in like tapes, but obviously it's called tape recorders. But they're literally beautiful concepts, melodies, ideas. They're all out there. We just have to listen. We have to just listen for them.
Yeah.
And I'll give you an example. I could stand near an ocean, which I've done many times while I was working in Hawaii, Buffy, and you just stand there. Listen to the sound of the waves, and the sound of a wave is what they call white noise. And the reason white noise is called white noise is the same reason why white light is called white light. White light is a combination of 7 primary colors all combined together to make white. White noise is a combination of every sound from the audio spectrum all combined together, and it just makes this sound, right?
Yeah.
Because that sound is made of every possible audio frequency, you can sit there and listen to it long enough in a state of meditation or quietness, you will start to hear melodies in that sound. They're in there, but you can't hear them, but you can hear them if you listen. So I've written many songs standing near an ocean, just listening to the ocean singing to me. And also even on an airplane with a monotonous drone.
Yeah.
It's all in there. Huh. You just got to listen for it, you know. And a lot of songs have been written using like a round dance drum, an animal skin drum. You play that for 10 minutes and just listen to it. You'll hear melodies coming out of that drum. You'll hear them. It's literally the drum starts singing to you. And I wrote a whole album called Songs from the Drum.
Wow.
About that every song was written by just listening to drums. So it's there you go. It's all there. We just have to listen for it.
So where's the best place to find your music? Is it these days, is it mostly YouTube, or do you have another?
I've got a lot of stuff on YouTube. I've got a big SoundCloud account. Everything's called Chris Birkett Music, right? So you know, chrisbirkettmusic.ca has links to my SoundCloud, to my YouTube account. There's some nice videos out on YouTube at the moment. There's the Wake Up video, which my wife did.
I saw that. You said maybe you'd like to play it. Do you feel like playing it?
Yeah, would you want me to play it this morning?
If you like.
What's the sound quality like? Because Zoom doesn't sound very good for music usually.
I can't really. I imagine it's probably your computer doesn't have the greatest microphone on it, but
I'll tell you what I'd rather do is
we could just link to it.
I could either send you a link, or I can actually send you the video if you want to put it on. Put it on your thing, you know, rather than a link, because links don't always. I mean, when I do my live show every week, if I have a guest performer on, like Buffy's been on it, and Gaia from Finland, some people I've been working with, I get them to send me a video, and I put it on my desktop and import it into the show. And that's much better than trying to do a link and stuff, you know.
Yeah.
So I can send you, if you want, I could send you a full, like a .mov of Wake Up.
Okay.
And then you can play it as part of the thing. Might be better because my experience with Zoom is it really sounds awful for music.
Yeah.
They have an algorithm which cuts out percussive sounds. Which is so the algorithms in Zoom is really set up for dialogue, not for music. Yeah.
You want to would you want to share a bit about how you came to start reading the Urantia book?
It's solely because of Buffy. She gave me. I started working with her in 1992, and I went over there, spent a lot of time in Hawaii, working at her in her basement, converted it into a studio. And so while I was over there, she gave me a hardback copy, kind of big one with a white cover at that time.
Yeah.
92. And she said, "Yeah, Chris, a present for you. You know, hope you enjoy it." Blah blah blah. So I took it back to London, and I started reading it because at the time I was in the Gurdjieff work.
Yeah.
In London, I was part of the Gurdjieff Institute for 15 years in London. I was doing workshops and sacred dance classes and all that stuff. And I liked the Gurdjieff teaching. It really appealed to me as a practical person. So I got this Urantia book while I was working with the Gurdjieff people. And I was studying books like Meetings with Remarkable Men and In Search of the Miraculous by P.D. Uspensky, you know, books that have been written about Gurdjieff. So I kind of got my attention, but when I started reading about the absolute Trinity and some of the terms at the beginning of the book, I didn't have any reference for that, and I found it kind of overwhelming. So I put it away in my books, in my esoteric book library, along with my 25 Alice Bailey books and my Secret Doctrine from Blavatsky and all this theological stuff I had, and also all my Buddhist books, Hindu philosophy. I had books on everything, you know.
Yeah.
And So I stacked it nice and neatly away with all that stuff, you know, and it's kind of stayed there for many, many years. And then my life changed. All my books ended up in storage, and then I ended up moving to Canada. I went over to work with Buffy on the 5th album called Medicine Songs in 2017. And so Buffy, when I was there, Buffy gave me another copy of the Urantia Book. This time, the softback one, you know, this one. She gave me this book.
Okay, yeah.
Which you're probably pretty familiar with.
Yeah. And
so that was, and she said, "Yeah, Chris, I'm going to give you this book again. I think you're ready for it now." Oh, okay. So, and she said, read book 4 first. She said, you might find it, if you try and read it from the top, you might find it overwhelming. So I read the Life and Times of Jesus, you know, Michael of Neverton, you know.
Yeah.
And that really resonated with me.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to read, and you know, and there's a lot of, I just found it was like full of truth, and even though it's stuff that wasn't, you know, I'm not really a Bible reader myself, you know, I do have a copy, but even as a kid, I found a lot of it contradictory, and I couldn't really accept it. It was kind of illogical, and I felt some of it had been made up, you know. So I was not really a big fan of the Bible. Wouldn't call myself a Christian, but once I started reading the Life and Times of Jesus, I actually became more interested in the whole subject.
Yeah,
because it just seemed to make sense to me the way it was portrayed in that book.
Yeah.
And then after I read the 4th book, I then went to the front, and I've literally read the book about 4 times now, all the way through.
Yeah, that's a lot for not that many years.
And each time I read it, obviously I get to understand more. You know, I'm encouraging to say, don't try and understand things on the first reading. Just let it absorb.
Yeah.
And you know.
And do you go to a study group in Toronto?
No, well, I did join the Urantia Book group with Derek Tennant and some other nice people.
Yeah.
We've stopped because of COVID. We've stopped having meetings. We did try carrying on with Zoom, but people didn't really, you know, just got bored.
Not the same.
You can only sit on a terminal for so long, you know. And for me, my music work is all computer based, right? I work on Pro Tools. So it's all like screens, you know. Yeah. I just get, you know, sitting on a screen. Even now, today, talking to you, it's not. I'd rather be talking to you in person, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, it's so much better. I just, you know, and I do an online show every Thursday on Facebook Live, and it's okay, but you don't know when anybody's watching, you know.
Yeah, I should check that out.
Yeah, if I got my last show got I think I got 400 views.
Okay.
Some of them I get like 1.5 to 2K views sometimes.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to.
If you want to check me out on Facebook, I did a Christmas show last week with my wife, which is really, really funny. We're doing classic Christmas songs, you know. And if you just go to Chris Birkett Band.
Okay.
It's facebook.com, you know, / Chris Birkett Band. You have to put the BAND at the end, because otherwise you get one of my other pages. And all my online shows are on that page.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I don't have that much time today, but I don't know if you wanted to ask me anything else.
We had
my wife's waiting to go out.
Yeah, I understand. We've been talking for a while. Well, you know,
even though it's a snowstorm out there,
I'm researching, you know, musicians who have read the Urantia Book, and if you had mentioned that you thought you had heard from somebody who may or may not have, but has anyone else come to mind? Like you had maybe heard that Bob Marley maybe read the Urantia Book.
Bruce Coburn. I think, but I may have got that information from you. But that's pretty cool, because he's a really good Canadian artist.
Yeah.
Jaco Pastorius, I was really pleasantly surprised to know that he was a reader.
Yeah.
And he actually wrote a song called Havana, which is really cool. Central Universe, you know. So, and then I found out that Carlos Santana was, because I was invited to be part of the Celestial Artisans program from the 1111 group. and they invited me to be one of their. And I noticed that one of the other people who was also on that same list was Carlos Santana.
Yeah,
So I was
yeah. Or actually, I think
really pleased
well,
to
there's
know
one
that.
website that features you, which Pato Bonton, he's also, he's from Birmingham. You played at Vancouver with Buffy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he played after you guys. I was there
Oh,
too.
cool.
Yeah. So and I think he's the one who put that website, but there might be another one because there is a big 1111. There's a big group that is, connects 1111 to the Midwayers and the Urantia Book. I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know a whole lot about it, but
Yeah. There's a couple of books you might want to look into. This this is there's a lady called Agnes
uh-huh.
Spencer,
Uh-huh.
and I got this information from the 1111 groups, and
Okay.
this is literally um, it's called an 1111 document. It's just recounts of daily contact with a thought adjuster, basically. But
Uh-huh.
it's kind of like the Neil Donald Walsh stuff. It's full of wisdom
Uh-huh.
and not necessarily a study in itself. I wouldn't like tell anybody to get this book to get them interested in the Urantia book. I'd rather give
Hmm.
them the source, But
Yeah.
but nevertheless, there's a lot of people who are receiving messages,
Uh-huh.
with great spiritual depth, and they're writing them down and sharing them with everyone else. So that's cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
And I'm under the impression that Leonard Cohen maybe at least read some of the book.
Yeah, Leonard Cohen. Yeah, well, according to Buffy, he gave the book to her. He introduced Buffy to the Urantia book, so
Huh.
he was into it well before she was.
Wow.
So
That's
that's interesting. He's been into it for a long time. He probably still is, even though he's not on the planet.
wow. Yeah. I had I had thought, oh, how could that be? Because maybe but yeah, maybe well, I'll ask her. I'll ask her if she gets a chance to tell me more of the story.
Yeah, well, I
Um,
guess well, they're all hanging around together in the folk clubs, right? Back in
yeah,
the '60s and everything, and I know that Buffy was very instrumental in getting what's the name signed, Joni Mitchell.
yeah,
Joni gave her a tape, a demo, and Buffy played it to her manager in LA at the time, and
yeah,
then Joni was subsequently signed because of that
yeah.
contact. And I know that Joni was always over in Hawaii with Buffy, and she wrote the song "Big Yellow Taxi" in Buffy's house.
Uh-huh.
So that's information I got from Buffy. They were talking about a hotel that they were building on the island, much against the natives' wishes,
Yeah,
and they had to uh, build a huge parking lot right over this beautiful piece of wasteland with the coconut trees and everything.
yeah.
So Buffy said, they've paved paradise and put up a parking lot. So Joni used that in the song.
Wow, that's like one of her famous lines.
Yeah,
That's one of
exactly.
her most iconic lines, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's really memorable.
yeah. So
Um,
that was born in Buffy's apartment house.
wow, wow.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, and from what I was reading, she she was playing Leonard Cohen songs before Leonard Cohen was like a known artist or something. So she must have somehow met him and liked
Yeah.
his work before he
Well,
really got any
well,
traction.
yes. Well, actually, Buffy did one of Joni's songs called "The Circle Game."
Yeah,
She recorded that, so she was very supportive without
yeah,
helping other people. So
yeah. I love that
very
song.
nice lady.
Yeah. Well, I hope to get to meet her someday and meet you in person someday, maybe too.
Yeah.
Maybe you could come
Well,
and
I saw
play at
her. I
another
saw her.
conference.
She played at Massey Hall a couple of weeks ago, so I went. I was lucky I had time to go down and see her after the show and have a little
Uh-huh.
chat with her.
Oh, good.
So we're working together again. We're doing. She's asked me to mix the management company Gilles Paquin. They want to put out a whole series of live recordings from her
Hmm.
shows. So they're currently selecting the best ones, and then Buffy wants me to mix it. So I've done. I did one last week.
Uh-huh.
I mixed 4 tracks from the live show.
Uh-huh.
So we're still working together, even though we're not in the same room.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
I know that Buffy likes my video, my wake up video.
Uh-huh.
when she saw it, she wrote to me and says, "That's really good. I think you've done a great job there." You know.
Yeah, I liked it too. I've watched it a few times and shared it with some of my friends. Sent it
Yeah.
to my
Thank
dad, and
you.
I'm in a group of Urantia Book readers in Europe, and I sent them the YouTube.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Well,
they
that's good.
enjoyed it. Yeah,
Well, I appreciate any promotion help that you can pass my way,
yeah,
and I'll be very happy to meet some of your friends too sometime. Maybe we could do a Zoom call
yeah.
with a lot of your Ancha friends, and we could all,
It
sometime in the year.
the last time you played at the Ranch conference, you hadn't started reading the Ranch book, so you'll have to come and play again sometime. when you,
Yeah.
but I think there are going to be a few coming up in Chicago, and I think the one 2022 will be smaller, but the one in 2023 I think is going to be a pretty big one. So maybe they could book some musicians. Maybe you and Buffy could come play, or
Yeah.
that would be really amazing.
That would be awesome. I'd love to. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and just keep in touch with me because
Yeah.
I'm releasing a lot of. I'm actually going to release an album hopefully this year called "Songs from the Kauai Hotel Room,"
Uh-huh.
and I wrote all those songs in the evening after my sessions with Buffy during the
Uh-huh.
day. I'd go back to my hotel room, and it's right on the sea, so it's
Yeah.
beautiful sound of the ocean, and I managed to write about 15 songs
Yeah.
in the evenings because I borrowed one of Buffy's guitars and I had my portable Pro Tools system.
Yeah.
Took it back to my room and just set it up with a mic and I come up with 15 wonderful songs. I want to release that as a series.
Yeah, that's awesome. Wow, I'm surprised. I'm surprised you didn't stay at her house, but I guess it's nice to be down at the beach and
Oh
be able to
yeah,
have.
I don't like to stay at the house of the person I'm working with because
Yeah.
it gets too much. You're like
Right.
you're together all day creating,
Yeah.
and then you get the evening. I
Yeah.
like to have that.
Have some
That's
time off, sort of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the very first time I went to Hawaii, Buffy said, "Stay at my place, and you can stay as long as you want."
Yeah.
And after two nights, I actually I said, "Do you mind if I get a hotel room?"
Yeah.
Is that nothing to do with Buffy or anything? It's
Yeah,
just
but
that
I saw that your wife made a multimedia life, and it looks like her place is kind of more up on the mountain,
yeah,
right? So yeah, I've never
it's
been to
further away.
Kauai, but I grew up in Hawaii, so
Yeah,
yeah, it's beautiful.
well, Buffy calls it her sanctuary. She's got
Yeah.
I think she's got like 40 acres of real estate up there.
Yeah.
Probably worth an absolute fortune, with a big pine forest and 25 goats and
Yeah.
she's got the perfect. But she needs that. It's really good for her because she's so busy
Yeah.
touring and performing and doing talks and always doing something. She
Yeah.
needs that kind of total sanctuary, which is like nothing there. Just like,
Yeah.
yeah, I found it a little bit boring living in Hawaii, I must say. I
Yeah.
couldn't really live there, but she's
Yeah.
perfect for Buffy. Works really
Yeah.
well for her.
Well, God bless you, and really appreciate the opportunity to talk. Thanks for
Yeah,
sharing all
thank
your
you.
stories. It's amazing stories.
Well, let's do the Zoom thing with the other Urantia people. That would be
Yeah.
really, really cool. I'd love that.
Okay. Well, God bless you, and have a wonderful day and happy
Yeah,
holidays.
yeah. Have a great Christmas, what's left of it. Yeah,
Okay.
and a fun packed 2022. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's really great to see
cool.
you.
Yeah, you too, man. Thank you. All
Thank
right.
you.
Goodbye
Bye.
then. Bye then. Leaving
Bye.
now.